Hey everyone, Michael Maven here. Today in this video I'm going to go through an article that reveals a secret that pretty much it's made our clients millions and millions of dollars, and even today it's not really kind of spoken about in public. It's not really, this is kind of it's the difference between kind of having a plan, a repeatable plan that can go in and generate more sales and revenue if you have a website, versus just kind of going in and just taking the tactical approach to generating more sales. A lot of people, the reason they fail when they're kind of trying to run experiments and do things to grow revenue and sales and websites is because they're missing this strategic approach. Okay, to it says split testing here in the article, but it's really just generating more sales and revenue. Okay, so the story behind this article is, if you see here in the top left, it used to be on the KISSmetrics blog. This article was originally written around 2015, and the story behind that is that I kind of became friends with Neil Patel, who was a co-founder of the company, and we did some work for him. We kind of wrote about our success, and he saw our process in action, and he was nice enough to give it a nice testimonial, and he invited us to write for a couple of his blogs, which was one of his other companies, Crazy Egg, and this one here, which is KISSmetrics. Today, this KISSmetrics.com goes over towards Neil Patel's blog, as far as I know, Neil Patel's website, and KISSmetrics has moved to KISSmetrics.io because I believe they've kind of parted ways. But anyway, back in the day in 2015, KISSmetrics used to have a badass marketing blog. It was super popular, and loads of people used to come and use it for reference, and just it was a really big authority in the space, in the marketing space. And that's when I was able to I was asked to write for it. So I'm just going to go through. I've dug up my article here on the Wayback Machine, and I'll put the URL in the description if you want to go and check it out yourself. But I'm just going to go through it anyway here on the screen and just kind of take you through the strategic approach to running split tests and experimenting, so that you can actually you find big winners, and you make a lot more revenue and sales with your new experiments that you build. Okay, so just contrary to popular belief, every split test is not really a great split test. Okay, just because you're running through the art of split testing and going through it, it doesn't mean that every split test is a great split test. So you're not always, a lot of the time, in my experience, probably 50% of tests that people do probably just don't really make a big difference. 25% of them actually hurt results, and the other 25% actually provide some good wins. So I'm going to go through why, and today you'll learn kind of how to run a successful split test, which actually does go on to make more sales and much more revenue. Okay, so normally the first thing that many people do when they run a split test is they just kind of pull out, we're going to change the button, we're going to change the color of here and this and that, and they just make a list of the kind of things that they want to change. We want to change the headline, and they start kind of just guessing at what they really want to do, what they want to split test. But what happens when you do that? It causes people to kind of split test factors that really don't have an overall effect on conversions on the site, right? So, a lot of these times it says that 71% of self-created assumption-based split tests, they don't increase conversions and may reduce. So that kind of comes from what I told you earlier on, the 50% plus 25. Okay, it's most split tests don't really have a big effect, or they cause damage and reduce conversions. Okay, so that's not a really good thing. So that means for you to be in that 25%, you either have to get lucky, or you have to have a strategy, for a repeatable strategy, which allows you to then kind of go on and run split tests successfully. Okay, so because there is such a low margin for success, the overall result of a split test, when you assume things, okay, they just kind of fail, and therefore it's possible that you get huge variations, that it says here, in the quality of your split test results, right? So the split gen process is something that we created because we needed something which works over and over again when we're running split tests. Okay, A/B testing, split testing, whatever you want to call it. We needed a successful strategy that allowed us to. It's basically design a winning page. Okay, now here's how we do it. Okay, we use a lot of kind of information, a lot of inputs, and it's very different to the way that people usually run split tests. Okay, so you can adopt this process if you want to turn that assumption style of testing into more, strategic wins. Okay, and if you want to prove that the split gen process is working better than any other method, you can test it against any other approach that you use to build winning pages. Okay, and you'll see that this process here that I'm going to go through today, the split gen process, it produces more big wins consistently over time. Okay, this is just a process that myself and my team have kind of developed over time. We've been running split tests, and we've been in the sales and revenue increasing game for 10, 15. Me personally, I've been kind of doing this for 20 years. Okay, more than that actually. So here's a rough idea of how the split gen process works. Okay, you can see here how it works, how it's different to a lot of other people's split test methods. Is we actually use a process, a base of inputs that we use. Okay, we take feedback, we use our own research, and we use other ideas, which all go in and they feed into the split gen, the system for running split tests. And when you put that in there, what comes out, you'll have a whole list of split tests that you want to include and use on the new page. Okay, and if you use this and build a new page using this, the output of the system, you're much more likely to go through and build a page that really does have produces a big difference and produces much more extra revenue and sales. But before we get into that, let's talk about the tactical. This is the assumption based approach to split test. Okay, this is kind of like based on guesswork. Okay. Now, from our own experience, we know that most split testing is a very tactical approach. Okay, and it's people like I said, people are doing things like changing the color of a button, the buy now button, or just adding in a satisfaction guaranteed logo. These are kind of small, minor changes that people are really kind of they're not really going to provide a huge big difference. Okay, so what people are doing is they're inputting all these things. And they just kind of like, it's like they just have a basket of tricks that they use, and then they just kind of reach in and just guess. They pull those back out, and they just kind of like guess, okay, to see which factors will affect conversion rates. And then they use these predictions and these kind of deductions to build a list of things that they want to test, or they just simply approached, like I said, the split test with their own bag of tricks, and they treat every single split test with the same approach. And like it says here, this is the equivalent of taking a questionable recipe and running a taste test with a single person, and then if that single person approves it, you just produce that recipe on a mass scale, and you think everybody would like it. Okay, that's not how you would work with the recipe. Okay, and it's just not good business sense. Okay. But when it comes to split testing, that's exactly what people do. It's really, really common. Surprisingly, it's really common practice to start out with just a list of tactical things to test, and then just apply those split tests to a website. And the reason that happens is because of something called the endowment effect. Okay, and what that tells us that we value our own ideas far more than the ideas of others. Okay, which is why in a selling situation, if you can kind of convince the prospect or the buyer that something is their idea instead of your own, they're much more likely to buy it, because people value their own ideas much more than other people's. And the other thing is, we only seek validation of our own ideas, okay, and not criticism. And so therefore, if you run a test, it's and your own ideas work, then you say, oh yeah, that win, that test won because of my ideas. But then when that test fails, you don't really kind of say, oh right, that test failed because of my ideas. You just say, you come up with a whole load of reasons for why that test didn't really work. So a fair analysis of the list of split tests is never truly realized. Okay, and then when the tests are run, you most of the time you kind of find just a minor improvement. Okay, but many times those minor improvements, they're actually seen as a success. So even when you do kind of like use just the tactical approach to split testing, and you get small wins, it looks like, hold on, we still made an increase in conversion. It was very little, it's a very tiny increase in conversions, but it was still done. And because of that, people, they carry on using this same method of split testing. So that there is the tactical approach to split testing. Okay. So now let's talk about the strategic approach to split testing. Okay, in order to find consistent big wins, okay, you have to approach split testing with some sort of a framework or a strategy behind it. Okay, this is your long-term overall picture. So this contains no detail. There's no details in the strategy about picking the button color or changing a specific headline or changing the background colors of the page or small details like that. There's none of that in strategy. Okay. And if you plan your split test formula, then if you have some sort of a method to pin your split test on, then you really make your overall process far more efficient. Okay, and that's what the split gen process does. Okay, this is a strategy for producing real big winners. Okay, now one of the reasons that people focus more on tactics is because it's much more kind of easier to see a tactic and kind of talk about it with your friends and discuss it, and it's much easier to kind of put a tactic into a small box and take it around, transport it, talk to share it with other people. It's very kind of specific, right? But strategy is something it's a bit more kind of it's not easy. It's always larger. It's the framework, and it takes time and effort to first of all put the energy into developing a strategy, and then kind of really get to know it, where you can move it around and use it repeatably. Okay, it's harder work basically, right? But overall, strategy always works to produce those big wins, okay, and make the extra revenue. So if you put in the work earlier on to kind of develop a strategy like this, or and understand the framework, you'll produce bigger wins on a much more consistent basis. And that's basically why I'm making this video, because if you understand how this framework works, then you'll be able to kind of use that for yourself and really kind of make far more sales, generate far more sales and revenue. Okay. So the best way to be strategic is to use a process, okay, an actual system that really kind of works as an overall strategy. And when you do that, you'll produce the big wins that make a big difference. Now that's all good, but how do you implement this? Okay, so the split gen process is refined down from the system used by big companies, okay, that split test in the real world to improve lots of manufacturing processes, okay, and sales processes across multiple industries. So imagine in that sort of area, when you're working in, it's called multivariate testing. When you're working in multivariate testing, you could be working in an industry that you've never kind of been in before. Okay, and where there is no website being used to sell anything. So, it's such an open environment that there's no way for you to kind of like use a repeatable. It's something that you've used in the past, because you've never worked in this industry, you've never worked in this niche before, you've never worked for this company before, and there's nothing that you've ever seen before. So there's no button colors or headlines or CTAs. There's nothing like that you ever come across. So in that sort of environment, you can't use your previous experience. Like, you can't use a tactical thing to test, because there's nothing there that you've ever come across before on a tactical level. Okay, so if you are a tactical person and you put into an environment like that, you will have no idea what to split test, because you've never seen these things before. Okay, but if you have a background strategy, an overall framework, then even if you were to be put into an environment like that, which is completely brand new, you would know exactly how to proceed. Okay, and there were a couple of guys who really kind of invented this process. Okay, and the big statisticians like R.L. Plackett, J.P. Berman back in the day, some of these guys, Charles Holland, Edwards Deming, and this kind of process that they've been using to improve manufacturing processes, that same framework can be taken and applied to websites. And that's pretty much kind of what we've done here, with adding in a bit of our own kind of our own twists, and making it very specific for websites. Okay, so let's move on and talk about how to kind of apply this framework to get your clients big wins. Okay, the first phase is to diagnose. Okay, so if when you go and see your doctor, you never say, "Hey doc, I need a heart transplant, let's get going." Okay, yeah, So you don't tell your doctor what to do, okay? And your doctor, when he looks at you, he doesn't walk in and say, right, this is the, you need to take this medication and you need to this procedure and blah blah blah. He doesn't. It doesn't work like that. Okay. The very first thing the doctor does is starts asking lots of questions and he diagnoses exactly what the problem is. Okay. The doctor will tell you straight away. Will ask you straight away. Hey, listen. Do you have this? Do you feel this? Do you feel that? Where's the pain? What are your symptoms? And so at this point, the doctor is not trying to come up with any solutions, and neither should you be when you first start out with your split testing. Okay, you do not start by coming up with a list of things that you want to test. Okay. Now this picture here is basically is showing us that you have to do the diagnosis initially and record your results. And then once you have that, you just make a note of the results. That's the only thing you need to do in step 1. Okay. Now, funnily enough, in the actual manufacturing process, most tests start off by asking, the executive's opinion. It's called the highest paid person's opinion. Okay, which is the HIPPO, the highest paid person's opinion. But when these statisticians used to go in and do the work, they found out that executives are just as bad as other employees at kind of predicting what is going to be successful in terms of testing. Okay, so there's no sort of level of employee, or there's no rule which says that only the executives and the most high paid people, will be successful in generating ideas that produce big results. Everybody, the executives are just as bad as the shop floor workers and the factory floor workers as generating ideas for split testing, and the same in reverse. Okay, sometimes a successful idea that really helps someone to generate far more of a chemical in a manufacturing plant, that idea could have come from somebody like the janitor, who might just even notice something about the machinery and say, oh, when I'm cleaning, that I always notice there's a lot of this kind of chemical that's spilt over here, and I noticed that using this piece of machinery produces a lot of waste, or those ideas can come from anybody. Okay, so it's the same thing with websites. Okay, really, you kind of, when you're asking people in a company, where do you, what do you think could make a difference? That idea, the winning ideas, they can come from anyone and everyone. Okay, anyone who's kind of involved in a website. So it's very important to open up your idea, the kind of depth, the breadth of people that you collect ideas from. Okay, and then you need to kind of watch how people use the website. What's anything kind of slowing them down? Is something getting in their way, or stopping them from making a purchase? And does the website load slowly, or does it always kind of look the same? And nowadays we have multiple browsers and devices and tablets and all sorts of mobile. Does the website always kind of display properly? You need to know exactly what these kind of things are. Okay. And if you can't see people using your website, there's a tool called usertesting.com. It's a service that can be helpful, where they kind of help you to you can see people using the site and see where the kind of holdups are. Or you can find recording tools. I know today, back then it was Crazy Egg. Today there's companies like Hotjar. They allow you to kind of show you recordings of people using your site as they do, and you can kind of see where they get stuck. So that's very good to kind of diagnose. Okay. Next, you need to quantify. That's phase 2 of this process. Okay. You need to make sure that you understand how you guys are going to define success. Okay. What is it exactly that you're trying to increase? Is it the number of people who purchase a product, or is it the number of people who opt into a list, or are you trying to get more people through your funnel? So people who are on page 3, do they always get stuck on page 4 and never make it to page 5? So is that what you're trying to increase? Or even sometimes it could be something like a phone number. Are you trying to get more people to come to this website and then pick up the phone and call? So you have to define how you kind of you're gonna measure what exactly are you going to call success. So you've got to be specific about how what your successful metric is going to be, and then you also have to be very specific about how you're going to measure it. Okay, and then you also need to kind of make sure that you're able to accurately measure the outcomes. Now, the next thing you need to do is build a representative sales funnel. Okay, so this has got to be something that you just kind of put together yourself to see a visual representation of your sales funnel. Okay, and you've got to really understand 3 important things, which is the very first thing that you need to understand is what happens to a visitor, what are they doing kind of before they arrive on your website, okay? And then the next thing you need to understand is what process does the visitor go through whilst they're using your website, okay? So whether they're buying or whether they're going to opt in or call through, what exactly do they go through whilst they're on your website? And then what process, the next thing you need to understand is what happens to them after they've bought on your website, okay? So it's kind of like that before, during, and after. You need to really kind of understand this and have a visual of each of these steps above, okay? So think about sort of the actions that your visitor is going to take and then draw them out as a path, okay? And what that does is it kind of gives you a visual overview of the business, okay? And that will allow you to kind of then see how someone first learned about your website. Did they see an ad? Did they come through an ad, or were they referred through word of mouth? Or then you need to kind of understand, well, if they came through an ad, what is it that the ad told them that they would receive? And then when they arrive on your website, did they receive? Was that same promise being upheld? Okay, was there a mismatch? And then what you can find out there is, you're thinking about where the kind of like the mismatches are along the website, and whether the path kind of makes sense. Does it make sense that people go from the ad to the website, to the ad to the landing page, to the product page, or read about? Does that whole thing make sense? Okay. And then you also got to think about things like your traffic sources, like where are people coming from? Because some people, sometimes Google users, they tend to be more sort of technically minded compared to Bing users, because of how people, access the search, and a lot of time Bing is just there as a default search engine. Next thing you have to think about is sort of things like the keywords that bring people to your site. Do the keywords match what people are seeing on the pages, like I was just saying? And what exactly are visitors trying to achieve on your site? You've got to ask all these questions, and you really need to understand the users, okay? And then you can also kind of like look at certain traffic sources and say, right, okay, do people from a specific traffic source convert very well? And if that's the case, you can actually include that information on your pages and convert more of the people who come from that source. So all of this information, you're kind of going through the process of research, okay? So you've got to try and get as much people, you have to get as much information as you can about people from the sales people from the sales funnel, and then you've got to build that visual representation, okay? So the idea here is to really, you're looking for areas of the business where you can kind of make changes that are going to produce big wins. If you see any place that causes a lot of drop off, like you see it like over here in this example here, you see people going from the home page to the sign up page to the actual sign up thank you page. You see that there's a big drop off here between the home page and the so it kind of you then have to kind of zoom into the home page and kind of figure out and say, right, what is it that's causing this a lot of people here to drop off, and then you've got to do the research. Okay, so that's why you've got to create that sort of that visual representation, so you can see where people are kind of falling off in the funnel. Today, there's you can use, even Facebook allows you to kind of like just go through the process and tag your pages, and you can see where the drop-offs are taking place. Like I said, Hotjar is another one that allows you to kind of like view your funnel in this sort of way, where you can see the drop-off physically. I'm not sure if KISSmetrics still do this and have these reports, but you could try them also and have a look. Another thing you should be looking for is areas where you can increase revenue. Okay, so for example, if you had a website seller where they kind of sell shoes, you might be able to go to a thank you page and either add on additional items, or whilst they're just about to make a purchase, you can buy some shoes. You might say, hey, listen, a lot of people who buy shoes, they also buy this belt. Okay. And you kind of like make suggestions and see what kind of what works there to increase the overall order value. Okay, and that's what you need to be doing that in many creative ways. So here's another example. It says if you sell luxury car wax, you can ask buyers if they want to if you want to either send them a reminder in maybe like in 60 days time when their bottle starts to run low, or you can even ask them, hey, listen, do you want to sign up for a subscription to this car wax, and you can just offer them some sort of a discount as an incentive to sign up for that. So those kind of things will bump up the order price and the value of the visitor. Now, in phase 4, the next thing you have to do, okay, you have to gather competitive intelligence, okay? Take a look around. Who are the competitors of this business, okay? What do they do successfully? And what have they been doing for a long time, okay? So have they been running a specific ad for a long time, or they've got a specific way that they sell on their website? You know, understand their sales process. If they've been doing something for a long time, like an ad has been consistently appearing, or a process that they've been using online, you know, to advertise, or an offer that they've been using is, you know, has been successfully running for a long time, then you can guess that it's producing, you know, good results for them. Okay, so try and understand the business and look from the outside, and also kind of figure out why it's working. Okay, and then also look at reviews of your competitors online. Okay, what is it that people, and also for, you know, for your business or your client's business, look at the reviews. What is it that people like? Why do they do business with, you know, one company versus the other one? Like, what do they like? And also look at something that's also very important to understand is the negative reviews. Okay, what is that people dislike? Why don't they like, you know, the current product that's being sold on your website, or your client's your client's website, or the competitor's website? You've got to really understand the product and kind of, you know, what exactly is that people like and dislike about the product. So you have to be very important with, you know, customers and their opinions of these products. Okay, and also sometimes, or actually many times, it's very useful to, if you can, go through the, you know, actually buy from the competitor, okay, and see what their sales process is like. Sometimes it might be the case that, you know, they sell something on the front end, and then as soon as you go through the thank you page, they might start making a different offer, or maybe in a day or a week later, they start trying to offer you further products and things like that. And sometimes it's those things that make a funnel successful. So you have to understand how people are selling, how the people in this area sell, in this industry. How do they sell? And what makes them successful. So buy through, you know, secretly shop competitors and look around. Okay, a lot of people skip this step, and because of that, they really don't, you know, they miss out on a lot of valuable learning. So it's important to do that. Okay. This is also a great place to sort of look for ideas, okay, that can improve your process, okay, and your sales funnel. And look for features, okay, to add also to your service. So, for example, if you've got a luxury hair salon and customers are complaining that luxury hair salons don't offer head massages, then you can start, you know, you can maybe try and include head massages with your service, okay, because that's what customers like, and you can just include that for an additional price. Okay, so that helps you drive up your profitability, and also lets you discover sort of a market need that you really didn't know existed before. Okay, so that's why it's important to go through this process. The next phase is phase 5, where you are discovering buyer friction and skepticism. This is really, really something that's key. A lot of people don't do this. They skip this step completely, and because of that, they really don't. You know, they miss out on a lot of very, very important learning. Okay, if you're building a site, or, you know, writing copy, you always have to do your research. Okay, and this is a key piece of information: is what sort of friction does a buyer face when they're trying to buy from you, okay, and what's stopping them, okay, so what's the friction that they face, so where are the kind of tiny snags happening, but also what kind of things are turning them away, and what is the buyer skeptical about, okay, these issues, you have to acknowledge them in the sales copy to remove the friction and overcome that skepticism, okay, so here's kind of how the process works, okay, on the website, you install a feedback collection device, that's step number 1, you learn the buyer friction points from the people, from the users who are visiting the website, and then you build a new page that overcomes the friction points and the skepticism, and you do that with sales copy, okay, and you constantly run this process. Even once you've built the new page, you go back, okay, so this is a constant running process. It's always running, and because people don't run this process, this is the reason why people like Blockbuster kind of went out of business, okay, because they weren't constantly learning about their customers. They didn't realize that, hold on, there's actually, you know, rather than coming to a video store and you know, coming physically in person and renting videos and DVDs and things like that, there's actually you know, people now prefer to actually kind of just sit at home and maybe download the movie and stuff like that. So Blockbuster kind of lost out on that business. Netflix realized that, they stepped in and put Blockbuster out of business, okay, because Blockbuster was not running this process, okay. Another example here is this famous ad by it's actually by Louis over here. I've written that's David Engel. It's actually Louis Engel, who actually Louisengel, who's another famous copywriter, and he understood that buyer friction was caused by when writing this ad. He wrote, he understood that a lot of the people who didn't want to get into buying stocks and bonds is because they believed it was a complicated business. Okay, so the first thing that he starts out his ad with here is some plain talk about a simple business that often sounds complicated. Okay, so he's addressing directly the skepticism and people's objections at the very beginning of the ad. Okay, and this ad then later on actually went on to build the company Merrill Lynch. Okay, so this was a very successful ad that was written by Louis Engel, and you can actually see right underneath this first objection handler here that he's written a second one. So I'm guessing a lot of people, whilst they're reading this ad, they would have thought, yeah, sure, why are you guys publishing information about how to be successful in the stock market? So he's got another title written directly underneath it which says why we are publishing this information. So he's a lot of this, this ad, and probably what made it successful is the fact that he's actually in the text itself overcoming people's natural objections. So he obviously knew this business very well, and he knew the audience very well, and he's addressing those objections directly in the ad itself. Now, although this sounds simple, what I've just explained, understanding buyer friction online, it can be difficult to collect it. Okay, but it's the main idea is that you've got to really get that feedback from your visitors. Okay, and once you collect all that information together, you've got to kind of see what are the common objection points. Okay, and then that will give you a direction in which way to go when you are creating your website and creating your sales copy and your ads also. Okay, it will all come back from this research. And to do that, you can use SurveyMonkey to collect that information. Hotjar today, once again, allows you to do that. Qualaroo here was an older tool. So they all allow you to kind of collect visitor feedback on your website without intruding without getting in people's way whilst you do that. Okay. Now, the next phase is phase 6, shine brightly as you can. Okay, there's always hidden sort of proof assets within the company that they never really kind of show to their visitors. And the reason for this is because if you're inside a company, you can't really, it's like you can't see the forest for the trees. Okay, so they think that if they've accomplished something, or they use a specific process which is different or unique to them inside the company, they think it was just it's normal to them, but so they don't really kind of make a big deal about it. But for you, as someone who's kind of looking to increase the sales and revenue, you need to show off all of the things that this company's really good at. Okay, so you've got to show proof that the company is an authority, that they are credible, that they are trusted and respected, and that they are experts. If you do those first 3, it will kind of prove that they are experts in the industry. Okay, now how you can do this? You can show publications that they've appeared in, awards that they've won. You talk about your previous clients who they who have bought from them, obviously with their permission. And that's why sometimes when you go to websites, you'll see something which says people who buy from us, that here's some of our previous clients, and it'll say Microsoft and Apple and all these huge big companies that the logos they display. And that's what it's about. It's because they're trying to build that credibility, because it generates trust in the website. Okay. And it's also kind of building, it's building credibility, but the main thing that is really kind of putting together is it's that believability. Okay, so as an example, a chiropractor client of ours, he had a basic standard website at the start, and he didn't mention that he used to use something called Soto, which is here in the UK. There's at the time he was just one of 9 chiropractic craniopaths in the UK. Okay, and also he didn't mention that to actually become a SOTO qualified chiropractic craniopath, it actually takes 1 year longer than it does to become a physician here in the UK. So it takes a long time to study for it. It's a very specific branch of chiropractic that he used to be an expert in. And he wasn't saying that to people. He was just he just had up a normal chiropractic website, which was just getting people trying to compete with everybody else. But as soon as he did that, and he made these changes. It made him look like more of an expert. Okay, yeah, but he wasn't telling people that, and by doing that, he's missing out on a lot of extra sales. So that's just these are just some of the few ways that you can prove that you're a good company to do business with. Okay, and another common mistake here in this stage is people, they don't really kind of showcase other products that they have. Okay, so for example, one client, he sold a solution to prevent industrial heating systems, okay, from kind of getting clogged up, and they also sold a product that removes the current buildup inside the system. But they're two separate products, and they did a great job in selling, the product which stopped them from becoming more clogged up. But they didn't tell other people that they also, about the problem of the current buildup inside the heating system, and that they sold a solution for that as well. So hardly anybody knew about it, and they didn't really kind of sell much of it. But once we kind of made those changes, they started selling far more of that as well, and increased their sales and revenue. So it's a very common problem, okay? And people, they just don't really kind of, because they're inside their businesses, like I said, they can't really see all the value they provide and things that will really make the potential prospects to kind of sit up and pay attention. But it's very easy for them to kind of like to skip out on that. But for someone, if you're doing this kind of work and you're looking to increase sales and revenue, you need to put all, to show off all your all the good things that you have in a business, so that when someone comes to buy from you, they want to buy from someone who's really credible and believable. And you have to build that up. That doesn't happen by mistake. You have to put these kind of assets up front and center, so that people they learn about that. Okay, phase 7. Focus on the raws. Okay, so at this stage in the system, in the process, you've got a whole lot of ideas that were generated from all the research, the previous research that you've done. But before we start building the new web pages, we can't make the mistake of focusing on something which I call squeaks, okay, to produce wins. We need to focus on the raws. Alright, so the squeaks. A squeak is an element on the web page that can boost conversion rates by only a small amount. Okay, so for example, changing the background color of your website, it might produce a win. It might produce, you might even, sometimes it produces 10%, 20% increase. Okay, but if changing the background of a website is going to produce, a win, then that means there's plenty more things on your website that's going to produce even bigger wins. Okay, so relatively speaking, the background color or a small button, improvement, or button color or button text is going to be, it's going to count as a squeak. Okay, so for example, Gary Halbert, the famous marketer, he once noted that he used to put, if he put one order form in his direct mail packages, then he used to get a certain response. If he put 2, it would increase the response. If he put 3, the number of order forms increased the response. But adding another order form, it slightly lifted the response. Okay, but it's a minor thing. Okay, that's not going to make a big difference. Okay, to the overall effectiveness of the campaign. Okay, so that is called a squeak. All right. So, for example, if with that Gary Halbert example, if you've got a 1% response rate and you're looking to break even on your front end with a 2% response rate, putting in the extra additional order forms, it's not going to make a big difference. Okay, it's not going to get you to that 2%. Okay, so those are the squeaks. This is the big mistake people make. Do not focus on the squeaks. Okay, don't focus on the little things that are going to make tiny improvements. We don't want to improve sales by small amounts. Okay. Now next, you have the raws. Okay, a raw is the opposite of a squeak. Okay, you might have heard about these before, the squeaks and the raws, or the the whispers and the screams, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, but a raw is a specific factor on a web page that has the potential to boost conversion rates by 100% or more. So something that's really going to make a big difference and double sales. Okay, if you start thinking about, can this double sales? Okay, the button text, it really can't. Okay, so switching to a higher quality traffic source, changing the headline of a page, changing the offer, the way that you offer something, changing the positioning of your offer, adding in upsells and continuity offers, adding in premium bonus gifts, or switching the offer to a free trial, and then which then gets people in, and kind of as a gateway to the product, and then allows them to stick more when they see how high quality your product is. Those kind of things, they will make a big difference to your response rates. Okay, so that's what you want to focus on. Are you when you're doing tests? Are you changing things? Are you changing the raws? You want to be always working with the raws. Okay, so this is an example of a this image here is just a test that we did. An educational item was being sold for $139. And we tried a split test where, price is another big. This price is a raw. Okay, we introduced a test where the item was being sold as $139 as a control, and then we sold it for $159 and $169. Okay, and the response on this test, the 139 and 159 people responded exactly the same. So the same people bought the same amount. Okay, at the higher price and the lower price. Okay, so that allowed us to make an extra $20, which is 14% on every sale. Okay, so that allowed, if you price at $159, that's an extra 14% on every sale. So without affecting the response in any way. So that means keeping it at $159 is the way to go. Okay, and then when it came to the $169 price, it just seemed that between that extra $10 there, something triggered in people's minds. So literally adding the extra $10 to the $159 price point meant that 50% of all the orders were cut off. So it cut the response rate in half just by adding the extra $10. Okay, so that was a lot less profit overall just for the extra $10. Okay, so we wouldn't have ever known that if we were testing something like the button color and this and that. Like this allowed us to make an extra 14% just with one single test. Okay, so. And that's just an example of a test which just contained one raw. But a lot of the times when we do this, we're using all the research that we put together. We build a page that has got 5-6 raws on it, and that's why we're able to build pages that have such. Oftentimes we'll double the amount of revenue that's being made through a sales funnel because of something like this. This is one of the secrets that we use. Okay, so it's important to make sure that the changes that you make with your experiments, they contain as many raws as possible. Okay, that way you're running real split tests. They're going to make a big difference. Okay, you'll see faster improvements. You'll see faster improvements more quickly, and your tests will also reach statistical significance much faster too. Okay, so it's more rewarding for you, and it's better for for the company or your client as well. Okay. Another thing to remember is to literally focus on simple, fast, and cost-free changes. Okay, so don't try and switch to a new CMS that's going to take a long time to implement and cost a lot of money because you think it's going to help you with generating sales. Okay, you've got to start with simple things. Okay, so it's got to be fast to change, it's got to be cost-free to change, and it's got to be simple. Okay, so your research might uncover, for instance, an example now, your research might uncover that a certain need is not being met by your current products. Okay, you can introduce an existing product that meets that need and put it into the sales funnel directly, and you'll literally see much more increases in conversion because now you're able to advertise that the new product takes care of an existing need that your old product didn't. Okay, so that will help with conversion. You're much more better off doing something like that and trying to generate more sales and revenue that way before you start fiddling around in the background with CMS and thinking about improvements to the business which are going to take a long time to implement and take a lot of money to implement. Okay. Phase 8. Think outside of the box. Okay, so when you're running your split test, you've got to try and come up with ideas that are really that people don't really think of. I haven't really tried before. Okay. So especially non-page factors. So you might think about, if you're trying to increase the conversion rates on a specific page, think about the traffic beforehand. Where are they coming from? What did they learn about on that page that then brought them to this page? Can you say something there on the page before, which then kind of affects the conversion on the page you're trying to increase the conversions on? You have to think about that. It's something that which a lot of people don't really kind of cover. That they don't go really wide with their testing and their ideas. Okay, so as an example, let me show you where this link here is goes to an old link here, but so this was an envelope split test. Okay, we managed to increase the response of sales without actually making changes to the actual sales letter, and the way that we did that by, so that it says here there's a difference between 100 sales and having 150 sales. Okay, so 50% is a big increase. Okay, and it says that, considering the fact that that was the same sales letter was used in both letters, it's a big difference. Okay, it's a big boost. So I'll show you exactly what we did. This is I'll put this link in the description as well. But this is that same article, and as you can see here, it says that this envelope split test boosted response rates by 53%. Okay, so it's just over 50%, right? And I'll show you the actual envelopes we use. So initially starting out, this is what the company was using. They used something like this. That's a control envelope. Okay, and that is very, very, it's very flashy. It's quite clear that whatever's inside here is this is a piece of junk mail. Okay, it's not interesting. Okay, this makes you just want to skip it and put it straight in the bin, because it's clearly an ad, right? So the next envelope we tried was using one like this. Okay, so we took off all the flashy graphics and the promo material, and we put the confidential stamp on it. That helped. From there, we tried. The owner wanted to try and make a letter like this, "Wake Up and See the World," which is the title that was on the originally. We didn't want to do that, but the owner was like, "Right, fine. Can we just please try this?" So that dropped the response rate. Next, we changed the envelope like this, and we actually used a handwriting font text. Okay, to see if that made a difference, and that helped to kind of boost response rates. And then next, so this one here has got actual business stamp in the corner, so it still doesn't really look like a personal letter. So the response rates were actually increased by, if you take a look here, we used handwriting and a live stamp in the corner, and that pushed the response rates up again. But how we increased that was we actually put the handwriting font, a live stamp in the corner, and then we used a sticker here for a returns address. And what that really does is kind of makes the envelope look like it came from someone personal. So people opened it straight away because they thought, right, okay, this is a letter from someone we know. And then they read the offer, and it increased the response rates by 53%. Okay, and we didn't actually even change the letter inside, so that's a big it's a big deal. And this is a sort of like thinking like this. If you think kind of outside the box, it really will allow you to just completely just develop your own competitive edge. Okay, that you kind of need when you're trying to stay ahead of your competition. Okay, and all of these advantages, they all add up. So it's very important that you run through this exercise, or you find someone that does know how to do this, because you're missing out on a lot of sales if you're not kind of thinking like this. Now finally, phase 9. Okay, this is the point at which, once you've done all those 8 steps, this is the stage where you've done all the research, you've eliminated all the assumptions, and now you try and you take all that information and you use that to design your new web page. Okay, you shouldn't have any problems now designing the new page, because all the previous steps will tell you exactly what's needed on the new page, what the objections are, how to build it, what your messaging should be, what it should be like, and you now have collected all the information that you need to really design a new web page that you can test with. Now at this point also, something should stick out in your mind, and should something to be like very obvious to you, and that is that most people, when they're doing split tests, this is where they start. They start off, their step 1, our phase 9 is design your new web page. We've gone through 8 steps, 8 phases before we started designing the new web page that's going to beat the old results. Most people, when they're doing split testing, this is where they start. They start off on our phase 9. That's their step 1 is design the new web page. And that's when, if you're a tactical tester and you base your tests on just tactical, tactics and previous heuristics, and just your previous things that you've done that have won tests, this is why you will never win against someone who is doing strategic split testing. And this is how we're able to get our results. This is how we're able to produce pages that sometimes double revenue, 2.6x revenue. One of our most recent case studies is 2.6x revenue, and this is how we do it. Okay, it's by doing the work, using a method and using a framework that allows us to kind of get deep and really kind of get stuck in to that sort of into the research and really understand the customer. Okay, so just to conclude, as you can see, this system is a well-refined process. Okay, it's not a joke. It's really this is a detailed system that goes in. It's a method that really kind of digs deep and works. Okay, and when you're setting up split tests, don't just aim for, oh, I'll try and get a 10% increase or 20% increase. Aim high. Okay, because you really can you really can make a big difference. And like I said, we've delivered we've got clients on a record saying that our work has had millions of dollars of impact, and it's because we use processes like this. Okay, so start off with this approach, take a strategical approach, and try and avoid a pre-made list that you walk in with. Okay, don't jump in and start with the button colors and the page background colors and all that kind of stuff, because it's not, it might produce a small win, but if you're producing small wins there, it means you could be producing huge wins if you use a research process like this. Okay, so like I said, use this process above, and it will help you. Really, you'll just kill the competition. Especially when you're going head to head with a tactically based split tester. Okay, so good luck. I hope this video was useful, and if if I missed anything, or if you want to want more information or something, my name is Michael Maven, and our website is topgrowthexperts.com. So post a comment here on the channel, or you can reach out and get in touch with me, and I will respond if you've got any questions. Okay, thanks for watching, and I appreciate the attention, and I'll talk to you soon.